All right, friends, Brian here from Guitars and Cigars. And this is our Peavey Bandit 65 rehab project. So what we've got here is, this is like an 83 or an 84 Peavey Bandit 65 amp. Now this is the first amp I bought with my own money back in, would have been about 83. My parents had bought me a Gibson Sonics and a Peavey 50. And I wanted to get something that had a little more pizzazz. I wanted to get a couple of options for distortion. I wanted reverb and a little more power as I was going to start playing live at different places in Norton, in Mansfield and Taunton. So this was the logical. I think I paid $180 for it back then. I went into Ray Mullin Music, which is where I bought my first gear with my father. And I think I slapped $50 down. Then over the next, 3 weeks, I paid it off, took it home, and was off and running. This guitar amp is loud. It's rated at 65 watts. But everything I've read says it's well over 100 watts. And I'm telling you, it is loud. And it has nice, clean, clear tones and sounds you can get out of it with amazing reverb, as it has a real tank. So what we're going to do is, I'm going to take the back parts off. I'm going to get the reverb tank out. And then I'm going to take the power head out, because I'm going to have to clean the pots. I've got some contact cleaner that we're going to use to do this. This is stuff I've used in the past to clean up amps, as all of my pots are really scratchy, and a couple of them, unless you're really fine tuning it, you're not getting much sound out of them. So that tells me that all the pots need to be cleaned. This was sitting in a guy's garage for years, I've been told. It's a little crusty on top, which is fine. What I want to do is all the grunge I'm going to clean off. The grunge on the front panel where my screen is, I'm going to clean that. Clean all the sides, clean inside. But I'm not going to do anything to the hardware. I'm going to leave it vintage looking. Everything up front looks pretty good. We got obviously a little bit of rust and what have you around my inputs. Long as it doesn't affect it, I'm leaving it. I really want to leave this as kind of a vintage looking amp. So that's going to be the whole plan for this. So what we're going to do is, I'm going to do it in two parts. I'm going to take it apart, and I'm going to soak the potentiometers, the knobs, with some of this cleaning solution, and I'm going to let that sit. And then over the next week, I will video myself putting it back together and then running it through a sound check. And that'll be part 2, which will come out next Friday, is what the overall plan is. So one of the things you should always have is a vessel to put the screws and stuff in as you're doing this project. So for it sitting in the garage for as long as it did, I'm actually pretty impressed. Now we got a little bit of dead critters here, some sort of millipede, centipede type of thing. So that's the serial number for this amp, if anybody's curious to look up the specs and see what they say. So this is the reverb tank here. It's covered in this piece of plastic. Really should have been screwed down. I'm not sure exactly why it's not. So we're going to get in here and get that out right now. like I said, some sort of critter here. We'll get my vacuum up here. Up inside here, which you will see with the images I'm doing, you'll see where the reverb tank connects. All it is just your standard. This is set up for a 4-pin. Looks like you can do a 5 on it. And that's that. And then we've got 2 speakers. Let me move my microphone here a little bit so it's not bouncing off my back. There we go. There's 2 speaker connections that will need to be disconnected from the actual speaker. Which will allow us to disconnect the power head, which is what we're going to do in a couple moments. What I want to do is I'm going to go to the front and we're going to take out the speaker grate, which holds in the speaker itself. All right, so the front grill is just held in with Velcro. Obviously, I will clean this up. I will probably bring it downstairs and use my air compressor to blow out all of the dust and everything that is in the actual screen. But now I have access to the front of the speaker, so I can do an examination on the speaker. I'm going to do that with my phone. So we got the front grill off, which is held on with Velcro, which is something I can easily replace if need be. And we got some more crusties up inside the cabinet. Now we're going to inspect the speaker. We should get some movement freely, which we do. Overall, the cone is in good shape. I don't see any cracks on it. I don't see any splits, which is somewhat remarkable since it's been sitting in an environment that's had tons of humidity, probably exposed to some moisture at one point, and the fluctuating temperature range out in the garage. All my gear upstairs here is in a controlled environment as I run air conditioning all the time. I'm from Massachusetts, so air conditioning gets shut off for about 2 months a year down here. So all of my stuff is in a environmentally controlled situation. So with that, I'm not going to run into a lot of the fluctuation issues that some people run into. So I'm fortunate there. This will come out. I have to take the cabinet apart. I'm not going to do that. I don't see any need to take the speaker out either, because I don't see any issue with it. And the Scorpion speakers that came on these amps are rated pretty rugged. They were highly rated when they came out, and they actually still rate even now, 40 years later. So once I get everything up and running and get all of this taken care of, get this all cleaned up, get my potentiometers cleaned, I will then see what the speaker's doing at that point. And if worse comes to worse, I will, swap it out. I'll get maybe a greenback or a creamback, or I'm not sure. I don't need anything crazy in this. You know, I could get my hands on a decent Jensen maybe and throw it in, but we'll see. Time will tell with that. Itself. Well, we can get this out. That's a definite. Oh yeah, there's all kinds of crusty shit in here. So that's your reverb tank. And I'm going to go over exactly what's in the tank itself to show you exactly what is inside of a true reverb tank. This is what you used to get for reverb. If you bought an amp and it had reverb in it up to a certain date, this is what you would see in it. Some sort of box, and I will open it up and we'll take a look and see exactly what's in there, and I'll figure out if I need to do any rehab to that. When I fired it up, I did get some reverb, so that is working. So that's a plus. So what you're not seeing, because my great big dome is in the way, is there was a screw that was up in the folds of that piece of plastic that was holding the reverb tank in, and I had to get that out. So as you can see, the pouch is a little crispy, and I've got spare hardware in here for whatever reason. And as usual, when you get into these things, you always find some sort of guitar pick. I was working on a Marshall a long time ago for a friend of mine, and we opened up the back to get to the cabinet because I had to replace a speaker, and I found a pair of underwear and a bra. So I don't know what was going on with that, but so I got another screw here, which is part of what was holding in the pouch for the reverb tank. Some of them are directly mounted to the frame of the amp. Other ones I've seen in these style pouches before. So obviously we're going to clean that up. I'll get out some mild cleaner. Do not use anything that is caustic or alcohol based, as it can disintegrate the older Tolex that's put onto these. Let me grab my vacuum and we'll get this cleaned up here. All right, so we got it vacuumed out. Now what we've got to do is these 4 screws here are what hold the power amp in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the 2 in the front. So we remove the 2 in the front, then we remove the 2 in the back, making sure to support the power head so it doesn't fall out. And you'll see that I actually took out the wrong 4th screw at first. Oops. There's 4, which is not the stock screw. So I don't know if this has ever been taken apart. Whoop, nope, I did the wrong one. That's why. See, gotta pay attention to this shit. So there's the 4 screws, and now in theory, and there it is. Takes a little coaxing, get it out. There's your power head. So that basically is what the inside of the top of an amp looks like. So you've got resistors, cobwebs, and different things. And these are your potentiometers, your knobs. And I'm going to get in here real tight with my other camera when I start cleaning all of this so you can see. And then that's where the power is built right here. This is where if you're messing around with electronics that are 120 volt, that's where you can get fried. Also, these are capacitors. These will kind of store power. so you don't get a drop. So say you're in a place where you get a power fluctuation, it'll go up and down. You're in an old VFW hall or something along those lines. Power is not necessarily going to be very consistent. These will load up with power and help you keep a continuous flow going. So this is where this and capacitors are the two things that you want to make sure you don't mess with until you make sure that it's been unplugged for a while and all the power has been discharged out of it. I used to, well, I don't used to, I still do. I make Halloween props. And one of the things I've thought about making is a Jacob's ladder, which is where the power, you see an electrical bolt that starts low and it works its way up. And as it gets higher, you can see the actual electricity until it hits the top of the two poles and it snaps off. Frankenstein, the original movie, a lot of those types of things have them. But the thing that you have to use a lot of times is a power supply out of a microwave. And if you're not careful with that, on how you keep it safe in a glass jar or something, and when you're messing with it, that'll kill you. There's enough voltage and amperage in there to stop your heart. So just a word to the wise when you're doing this type of thing. Absolutely make sure you're unplugged. And B, give it some time, because over time the load will dissipate and you're safe at that point. So the next step's going to be, I'm going to wipe this out, get out some of the cobwebs, and we're going to put some of our cleaner into the potentiometers to see if we can get them cleaned up. And then we'll do some more general cleaning on this stuff. So, all right, we'll be back in a few. All right, I probably should have done it on camera. I apologize. So just giving this a once over with my vacuum obviously did a vast improvement. I'll get some of my low power detergent I'm going to use to wipe everything down, and I will do a really good wipe down on this after. But overall, it's actually in good shape. I thought it was falling apart, and to be honest with you, it's in pretty good shape. What I'm going to do is, part of this, when I put this back in, screw here, I'm going to put a washer on top to help it so it'll grip and keep it down. So the front of the amp, I have now cleaned up. Again, I got to wipe everything down, but I got rid of all the dead creepy crawlies that were in here, gave it a vacuuming on all of it, got a majority of the schmutz out of it. What you're seeing here is, this is MDF particle board, so you're just seeing a little bit of the flaking. Now, if I was going to be redoing this so it looks like a brand new amp, I would take the speaker out, tape off the edges here, and respray paint this. That isn't what we're doing here. I just want to get this thing so it's running very nicely. All of the different effects, everything works the way it's supposed to. And then we'll make a determination on the speaker if I need to upgrade that. Mind you, I paid $20 for this. And I paid $20 for this, and I got all of this in the same deal. These were all sitting on top of his amp. So he said, you can take those too. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 chords. And a couple of these are actually kind of decent chords. You know, they're not happy cables, which are outstanding chords. But these are what would be considered, 10 or 15 years ago, decent chords. A couple of them are kind of cheesy pieces of shit. But some of them are pretty nice. This one's braided. It's got a straight and a 90 on it. A little bit loose. So I'll have to look at the, oh, I just tightened it. And I got Caterpillar. And I got a couple of shorties here if I was running pedals. So, you know, Facebook Marketplace, I'm telling you. Outstanding deals there. I've been looking at these amps. A one in really decent shape is $200 or $300 anyways, maybe upwards of $500 I've seen them. I'm like, I don't need to relive my childhood that bad. The guitar I want to buy, that's a different story. The Gibson Sonics I want to buy, which is what I had, which was a 180 Deluxe in Alpine White, which is more the cream color of like Randy's 74 Les Paul. For me to get my meat hooks on one of those, I'm going to have to peel off $1,200 or $1,400 bills probably. But that'll be down the line. I got to do me a lot of honeydew lists to get that done. But so overall, after getting it apart, this is in really good shape. Cosmetically, it's a little rough. But there again, like I said, this is what I was looking for. This is what I want. So that was part one of the Peavey Bandit 65 restoration project. So we disassembled, cleaned out the chassis, cleaned out the head, removed the power head, inspected the speaker and the overall cabinet, what have you. So next week we will finish the cleaning process. We will do one more between now and then of cleaning the potentiometers. I'll do one more spray on that. I'm going to go over the parts that are inside the power head, and then we will do a reassembly. The other thing I'm going to do probably Tuesday or Thursday is I'm going to drop a video about the reverb tank. Go over what's actually inside the reverb tank and how that whole thing works. And then we'll get everything back together and we'll do some sound tests. See if all this was worth it. I mean, it's a $20 investment. And like I said, I got a bunch of cords and everything else with that purchase off of Marketplace. So I think overall it was a worthwhile investment either way. So, all right, my friends, smoke long, play loud, live well.